Hi, I'm Sean.
I'm Rhonda. And you know, one thing we women do that doesn't help is we present what we bring to the table harshly or poorly, and we kind of encourage the man to withdraw.
Yeah.
And maybe we use too many words, too much emotion, we're very intense, we come across as aggressive, we pursue. And, you know, we might could do a little more baiting. Hey, I have some thoughts on that topic if you would like to hear them. Could we make time for me to share that with you? And then be able to boil it down. Don't monologue at length.
Yeah.
And make your husband sit there and listen to a lecture. You know, but we can set ourselves up to be more easily heard. And we might need to ask our husbands, how could I present better so that it would be easier for you to hear what I bring to the table?
That's so valuable, really, in our relationship. If something isn't coming across the way that you like it or you need to hear it, find a positive way to let your spouse know, hey, could you try saying it this way? I think I could hear that a little bit easier if you could word it like this,
Right.
without saying it with a jab that sounds like, you know, you shouldn't talk to me this way.
And the thing is, if one person or the other is consistently just not seeing it, you know, what he or she brings to the table is not good, wrong. You have to say, well, did you vow in covenant to become one with this individual? You really should allow that oneness, or you're going to tear apart what should become one, because it's going to remain two, but both of you innately know it shouldn't be two.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can find something agreeable about what's said. You can say something like, wow, thank you for sharing. I want to pray about that.
Yeah.
And see what I feel about that. Can you give me some time to just mull that over?
And this is an example of when the two of you really see something differently. How do you connect in a positive way to say, wow, I appreciate your sharing your feelings and your thoughts about that. I need some time to think about that.
And you know, sometimes we can boil it down. Sometimes we want all of what we bring to the table. And what if we boil it down to, well, I would be fine with it if I at least had this in the picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a little easier to connect with.
Yeah, finding the smallest thing that you can connect with your spouse on, and then it can kind of grow from there.
Yeah, so you want to realize too that when a man escalates during conflict, let's say they're talking through something, and the man begins to escalate, that actually can set up, or it can reveal, I guess you would say, the longevity of the relationship. Because basically when that's happening, the woman's going to feel not heard, like he's rejecting what she's bringing to the table, he's pushing her back.
Yeah.
And, you know, when that happens, and it happens too much, there's a distance, and that distance begins to increase as one or the other doesn't feel that they are part of this marriage. Because let's face it, if a husband or a wife feels invisible in the marriage, over a period of time they could literally become invisible in the marriage and exit the marriage.
Right.
And so for both parties to appreciate this relationship and feel one, they need to feel accepted by the other.
You know, studies have found that men are more likely to bring in distressing, they call it the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the negative behaviors that are really going to bring the relationship down. Men are more likely to bring that in. So men need to watch the level of negativity that they have in a time of conflict in the relationship.
Think of the woman as a responder.
Yeah.
She's responding to what he brings to the table. So what if he is more peaceable and more accepting, finding something positive about what she said.
Yeah.
And then, you know, realizing that if consistently he's not joining up with her in decision making, there may be a perspective problem going on deeper in his heart.
Yeah.
Maybe he has trouble hearing anybody else's perspective. Maybe he sees things as black and white. This could go either way, actually. But, you know, my way is right, your way is wrong. And it may not be. It may be a difference in preference.
Man, this is such an important thing to work on in the relationship, to be able to hear each other and receive influence from each other.
And so a man can learn from his wife how to be better influenced by her.
Yeah.
A man might ask questions like, so, how could I make you feel heard? What is it that you need to feel safe to approach me and to freely share what you're seeing?
What makes you feel like I'm seriously considering or prayerfully considering what you present? A lot of times, we can hear what our spouse is saying, and then instead of maybe repeating back to make sure that we correctly caught the message, we just present our viewpoint, maybe an opposing viewpoint, and we don't really connect with them on the value of what they presented.
It's very important to connect with a woman on an emotional level.
Yeah.
So don't try to connect with her like you'd connect with a male. That doesn't work. It makes a woman feel pretty distant. She's not a male.
In other words, men have to add a little bit of emotion, a little bit of flavor into that connection to spice things up.
And the thing is, one thing they found in the research is it's pretty simple, actually, to make a marriage work. It requires being polite, kind, sensitive, to focus, to realize that when you come into covenant, you're joining and blending with another person. You can't act single anymore.
Well, sometimes we think that if we're experiencing difficulty in our marriage relationship, it's made up of really big, complex things, and a lot of times it's just the small things that we do to connect with each other that make all the difference.
And so when we're having all these negative thoughts and feelings, they are building, they can overpower the positive ones, and we lose sight of the positive ones. We choose what we'll think on, and our perspective determines how we will respond. So we would present to you and challenge you, prayerfully consider, Lord, how do we blend in this marriage? How do we become one, that we not remain in certain areas at least, two? Because if we see that we're clashing, that's probably a sign we're two in that area. We have not yet found unity, and so how can we find a good blend of he and she? And that should actually be the goal of working through issues. Is not how can I get my way, or how can you get your way, or should I defer to you, but how can we find something that's uniquely us about this?
I think sometimes too that the way a husband treats his wife can sometimes be a image of how he sees that his relationship between him and God is. And if he sees that his relationship with God is, God is not sharing power with him, and that there's a receiving of influence there, he's not going to do that with his wife either.
That's a good thing to note, to look at. We can use these things in our marriage to kind of look at, where am I spiritually?
Yeah.
Because I think one thing that we see with couples is what's going on in the marriage can a lot of times show us in a physical way what's going on spiritually between us and God.